Liam Cohen has taken a very, very nice approach to Trevor Lawrence. I'll tell you why I believe Trevor is going to play well this year.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where we give you the biggest stories for the Jacksonville Jaguars and about the Jacksonville Jaguars as we head into the 2025 season with the preseason only a couple of days away. I'm here to navigate you through all the things you need to know in order to watch the game the way you need to watch it. Been covering the team for almost 2 decades as a credentialed member of the media, and I'm here for you every single day. It is your team every day. We always thank you for making us your first listen and spending about 30 minutes with us every day that we do not take for granted. We are also free to subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap into that location. Whether you watch or listen, we will be there each and every day. All right, so I'm going to navigate you through this whole day. In this particular episode, we're going to talk about Trevor Lawrence. We'll end up talking about how he's restoring, he's having confidence restored. And that confidence extends not only to Trevor, but in the fan base that roots for Trevor to be really, really well, playing really, really well, providing shelter. That's one thing I believe that they got right with the offensive line and the weapons that they put around Trevor Lawrence. And first, we'll start at the very top, breaking it down to the studs. And what I mean by that is a phrase that we've heard 2 or 3 times, maybe 2, maybe 1 or 2 from Liam Cohen about how they were breaking everything down to the studs. And that wasn't just Trevor Lawrence. That was the entire team. That's everything organizationally, everything from a football perspective, from how they prepare to strength and conditioning, to their mental approach, to how they study, to the expectations, all of those things. And one of my friends, one of my loyal everydayers, he said, the big homie going to get mad at me. I don't know if he was talking about me, but I think he was. He said, the big homie's going to get mad at me because I'm tired of hearing about these coaches and GMs from the past. I'll tell you why that's important, though. It's important because we haven't seen anything happen now. And a part of the angst or the anxiety that Jaguar fans have, they have based on all of those things that happened over the course of the last, depending on how old you are, it could be the last 25 years, but I'll just say over the course of the last decade, the way folks have been taught to watch the Jaguars and the way folks have been basically the results that the Jaguars have given people has kind of led the Jaguar fans to be kind of slow to move in the direction of, okay, I think it's fixed now, because it's almost like broken promises, these broken promises and being let down year after year. So I like to point out the things that are being done differently and also giving credit to the guys in the past for some things that they did that absolutely they worked, right? I was standing there, I think it was Ryan Green, I think I was talking to Hacker, and Hacker pointed out one of Trent Baalke's draft classes, and it turns out it was pretty damn good. And so the reason why we do that is because I want you to be able to move on and move forward, but I also want you to understand that everything wasn't bad. That's why I said when this new regime took over that they were better. They were a better team than their 4-13 record showed. It's just that there was so much other stuff wrong with the team from a morale standpoint and a communication standpoint. And that is the responsibility of all of those people that left. So basically what I'm trying to do is say all wasn't as bad as it seemed, but the bad part of it that was bad really, really made it look worse than it really was. And now we have this new way of doing things. So I wanted to give the homie that little bit of a grace and understand that we're not trying to live in the past, but we're also not trying to run from it. You know what I mean? You can't just use your enthusiasm for this season and use your hope, if you will, and your optimism for things getting better as a way to just suppress all of those things that happened. But everything that happened in the past also wasn't bad. And some of that stuff you'll see that this new staff is standing on, right? They're standing on some of the draft picks are guys that they really depend on. They love Trayvon Walker. They love Walker Little. They absolutely love Brian Thomas Jr. They love their three techniques when they're healthy. And Foye Oluokun and Tyson Campbell. So there's a lot here that this team is working on, right? The biggest thing is Trevor Lawrence. The biggest thing is Trevor Lawrence. And what I'm going to go through is the reason why I've been a Trevor defender this entire time is because I have also been a critic of the things that they did around Trevor. And I really wish I could go back and pull it. I don't think we were doing video at the time here on the network when Trevor got drafted. We were only doing audio. But there are some things that I said that needed to happen. I said they need to shelter him. They need to provide him with protection. They don't need to just say, give him the ball and let him sling it around and get out of the way and all of this stuff. What they really, really need to do is do the fundamental things. And one of the examples I used was Tom Brady, and I think I probably used Peyton Manning. And I said, we forget in their greatness, and you can even use Patrick Mahomes into this. We forget that in their greatness, they also have very good coaches. They also have very good organizational structure. They also, for the most part, have had really, really good offensive linemen and really, really good players that they were throwing the ball to. So when you want your new quarterback in 2021, the guy that had all of this hype coming in, when you want him to succeed, you have to do those things that those other teams have done. And there was never a sense where people said, give him the ball and get out of the way, or just let him throw it around and he's going to lead you. See, I think because we deitize quarterbacks so much, and every time a team is really, really good, except in the case of Jalen Hurts, by the way, we always give the quarterback too much credit. We give them too much credit for winning, and when they lose, we give them too much credit for losing without paying attention to everything else that's going on around the team. Tom Brady didn't just have Bill Belichick and Randy Moss and Wes Welker and Edelman and all of those running backs, Kevin Falk and all of those dudes. Tom Brady also had Dante Scarnecchia as the offensive line coach, and he could squeeze orange juice out of a bag of onions. And he didn't even have onions. He had oranges. He just probably didn't have Florida oranges, but he would get the absolute most out of those players. Peyton Manning had Howard Mudd and a bunch of weapons. I mean, Dallas Clark, we ain't talking about a dude that's going in the Hall of Fame, Marvin Harrison this year, and Edgerrin James, who's already in the Hall of Fame, and Reggie Wayne, who probably should be there, and then a great defense, and then Tony Dungy. Drew Brees had Sean Payton. All of these players that folks want to compare Trevor Lawrence to had all of these other things. And we here in Jacksonville had Urban Meyer at first. And then we had Phil Rauscher attached to Doug Peterson. And we had Trent Baalke, who, while he did some good things and picked some good players, Trent just couldn't team build, man, and couldn't put it all together. So I'm going to go through some of the things that this team has done when they said they're breaking it down to the studs and tell you why I've defended Trevor, and not only defended him, but why I will now say that the process that this team and this organization has undertaken is going to really, really help Trevor Lawrence this year, and is going to change the perception of a lot of people about him. When you really look at the situation close enough, Trevor Lawrence didn't have the support, didn't have all of the things he needed to be great. And it's not me making an excuse for him. Just show me where I'm lying, and you can't do it. You absolutely can't do it. We'll discuss that and more here in a second on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling with FanDuel? You can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. I'll say it again. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Whether you're placing same-game parlays or watching a bet right until the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. All right, so we're talking about Trevor Lawrence. Let me tell you something that he's never had. I don't think he's ever had a really good, deep, competitive offensive line, and that's what he does have now. I don't think it's where they want it to be, but I think it's where they could get to in one offseason. They've added 6 new bodies to that offensive line. I heard some weird stuff yesterday, too. Some people were thinking that, is Pat McCary going to start? Is he going to get beat out? And he was their highest paid free agent on that offensive line. The fact that I think he's going to play, I don't think he's going to be the swing guy. And I think people are saying that just because he's the one dude that can play all 5 positions and they think that there's competition. But the fact that there's even that kind of chatter tells you that a dude that started and probably played more snaps than anybody for the Baltimore Ravens on their offensive line over the last 3 years can come to Jacksonville and have competition. Fred Johnson, he was number 7. He was the second offensive lineman off the pine for the Eagles who won the Super Bowl. And there were people that saying he ain't gonna win no job here. And man, he's gonna be number 7 here too, or maybe number 8. See, those are good things, right? Those guys in front of them still have to play well, but those are good things. That's the kind of competition we haven't heard here before. After your 5 offensive linemen, here in the past, you had Walker Little, who they didn't know until last year whether he was going to even develop enough to get a contract extension. But other than that, you had nothing else. You had dudes they were just picking up off the waiver wire left and right. So now you have this competition, and that's where it starts. You can't ignore the fact that the same offensive line that was blocking for Trevor Lawrence is the same offensive line that allowed the running backs to be touched faster than any other running backs in the National Football League on running plays. How can you not acknowledge that? As much as I like Zay Jones's effort and Christian Kirk's professionalism, how can you even argue that those guys, and the 1 year you had with Calvin Ridley, how can you even argue that the wide receivers are anywhere near the kind of wide receivers that all of those great quarterbacks have had in the past, or the ones that Trevor has now? In one offseason, they've added competition to the offensive line. They've added speed with Diami Brown, Travis Hunter to go along with Brian Thomas Jr. In the past, you get one guy who's fast in Brian Thomas Jr., and then you get a possession guy, and then you get a slot guy, and then you get some developmental dude on offense. And the thing is that's not the way that this works, man. You better go and shoot for it. You better get the best players you can possibly get at every single position and not sit here and think that you can just cherry pick and put guys in spots where you think they belong. That's not the way that this works. So functionally, from a personnel standpoint, they have figured out how they're going to get better and how they're going to move forward and how they're going to press. They're always going to press towards greatness. All right. The other thing is, yeah, Trevor, we're going to break you down a little bit. We're going to fix your mechanics. We're going to give you answers pre-snap. We're going to make things easy for you. There's nothing better than making things easy for a great player. Some people think the greater the player, the less you need to do and just no. You insulate them. You provide them with the ammo just like if they're an average player. You provide him. You treat Trevor Lawrence the same way you treat Brock Purdy. And if they're treated the same way and given the same things, Trevor Lawrence should always be better than Brock Purdy because he's just better and more talented. But if you give him less and Brock Purdy is sitting there insulated with all of these weapons and a great system and consistency and guys like Christian McCaffrey and Big Williams at left tackle and all of these other players, and you got Debo out here, you got Brandon Ayuk, you got George Kittle, and then you have a system and something that they trust in, well, Brock Purdy is going to outperform somebody like Trevor. When you put Jared Goff in the system and you give him 2 great running backs, a monster offensive line, an attitude to boot, and then wide receivers like Amon-Ra St. Brown and all of those other dudes, he's going to outperform Trevor Lawrence. But what if you gave Trevor Lawrence that? What if you had a great system, great coaching, great attention to detail, great competition, along with a smorgasbord, if you will, it's like a buffet of nothing but weapons and guys that can run. So now you don't have a situation where everybody's looking up to one receiver and I'll just feed off of you. This trickle down football effect. What you have is guys that saying, "No, I'm just like you, and we're going to get this thing together." Even if it means people get less snaps, even if it means they get less looks, even if it means they get less statistics, if they win, nobody will care. You can be an 800-yard receiver on a team that wins 13 games, and it would feel like to the public that you are a 1,500-yard receiver. But you can be a 1,500-yard receiver on a team that wins 3 or 4 games, and people will go, they need to move him somewhere else where people can really appreciate his ability. This is not the way that works. It's not how it works. And the reason I'm explaining it this way is because Jaguar fans, and it's to no fault of their own, Jaguar fans are used to things not working. You have to go back to Jimmy and Keenan and Fred. You see what I just did? Jimmy, Keenan, and Fred. If you name the 10 greatest Jaguars of all time, all 3 of those guys are there, and they ain't numbered 10, 9, or 8. And then you want to throw Maurice Jones-Drew in there too. I can sit here and name guys that were teammates. Mojo was a backup to Fred for a lot of those years. And I can still honestly sit here and tell you that those are 4 of the 7 best players to ever play for this franchise. Arguably, maybe at worst, 4 of the best 8 or 9. And the reason why I can do that is because they were good. They won games. You thought every single time that they came out that they had a shot to win some games. And you know why? It's because they were good, and it wasn't about individual stats, but they also had good offensive lines. They also had good defenses, and they were well coached for the most part. So it's all about breaking this thing back down to the studs and then providing the shelter that Trevor Lawrence needs. Now, this is the biggest thing. Does he receive it? And by him, I mean Trevor. Does he receive it? Does he accept it? Is he going to still be, what's the word? Is he going to still have nightmares of the way it used to be? Is his muscle memory going to be up to par to the point where he's going to be able to go and play the game the way it's supposed to be played with the help, even though he's a great player, with the help that's needed from having answers pre-snap, having extra protection, not having to overdo it and do too much. You ain't got to make a great play. Every throw doesn't have to be a great throw, because when you're losing and you're not good and you have to play hero, that's exactly the way that you play. No, we're just going to let you play quarterback, dog. Everybody's going to do their job. Everybody's going to do their job, and all you have to do is do yours, and that supreme talent is going to allow you to do that job better than most people because you were just made differently. I'll get into whether or not restoring confidence in Trevor also means restoring confidence in the fan base. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by, and the episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. NFL kickoff, it's almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with fantasy football, a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and my guys at the Playmakers and Showtime, man, I said 16 years. It's about 18, 19 years. And we're playing Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran, making your 1 millionth league, right? I'm telling you, we've had a great time. The fantasy draft is a get-together of a bunch of dudes, man, that really don't see each other very much, but we absolutely enjoy getting together every year. To celebrate 20 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days through August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now it's time to get your league together and give the new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, You can still play head-to-head, private leagues, or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, third and final segment here. Kicking it with you on Locked On Jaguars. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast, running it down about Trevor Lawrence, all of the things that this team is doing that have not been done for him in the past. They're giving him more, so he has to do less. That's the bottom line. But less doesn't mean less in terms of the acclaim that he can get or making him some sort of a game manager, although that's a part of it. Less means you can take the cape off, dude. Cape doesn't have to be on 17 weeks. Doesn't have to be on 100 plays or 75 plays a game. Doesn't have to be that way. Play the game naturally the way it's supposed to be played. Let your talent speak for itself, and then that cape comes on once or twice a game, or just once or twice. There are plays that are probably designed to allow Trevor to be the talented guy that he is and to do the things that he does and allow that big arm to whip those throws and drop those balls into the proper place, at the critical times of the game. And that's what makes great players. It ain't like you got to sit here and throw for 400 yards every week. It's about when you do things, right? And I do believe there's always room for a player to play above the X's and O's, and Trevor is good enough to do that. But the X's and O's that you're playing above have to be fundamentally sound. They have to be things that are done the right way in every other way. You have to be able to trust your teammates. Your teammates have to be able to trust themselves and not totally depend on the prince that was promised, as a lot of people talk about. And one thing that was missed, and I've been consistent with this the whole time that everybody's been throwing these adjectives on Trevor Lawrence, the whole time that everybody's been talking about whether or not he's going to live up to this or live up to that, and he ain't lost one or two games since high school, and all of that. People look for the icing and the decorations on a cake before they think about whether or not the cake is actually done on the inside before you put the icing on it. Did you let it cool off? Because if you didn't, the icing's going to melt. Did you let it get done? Did it collapse? Did you keep opening the oven and it collapsed? And so now you're trying to figure out a way to make it right. Did it come out wrong and you go, okay, well, we just got to go ahead and serve it the way it is. No, this is not the way it works, man. And that's not the way football works. You should never be in a situation where you're dependent on somebody's talent to make up for shortcomings. Not when you're the one that built the damn team. You should never be wanting, I got to get that. The way that they were playing it is like, all right, yeah, just imagine this. Imagine you got to pay your bills, right? And you're close. You almost got enough money to pay your bills. And every single month, you're depending on hitting a scratch off in order to get the rest of your rent money. That's the way that it was. It's almost like, okay, we're all right. We're in the neighborhood, but we'll use our quarterback to go ahead and get us over the hump. You can't be looking at it like you're going to hit a lottery ticket. I said a long time ago, if you win Powerball, that is when you actually need a financial advisor and you need to learn how to shelter your money more than anybody. When you ain't got no money, you don't need no financial advisor. When you got money, you better get one, and you better understand the tax codes, and you better have a lawyer that can help you with that stuff and know where to put that money and make good use of it. When you have a very, very talented player, you should always invest in the infrastructure and into the program of your team and make sure that everything is right in anticipation of you getting a quarterback. But I know in 2020, after that season ended, this was the worst roster on earth, and they went out and got a quarterback. It's almost the reverse of it, like, well, we can't get a quarterback yet until we get an offensive line. They say that stuff about running backs. No, we need to fix the line first. Well, you know what? I ain't never agreed with that, but in this case, it would have been nice because when he got here, he had nothing, and they expected everything based on hype, and that is the problem. The problem is anyone with a brain who wanted to just look past all the hype, who wanted to look past everything, would have realized that I almost cursed, but the situation that they put that kid in, I don't know if anybody would have won. Maybe Lamar Jackson, because of his ability to escape trouble. He got a getaway car that nobody else has, right? and it's got a Hemi in it and nitrous. So it would have looked a little bit differently. But I guarantee you, if you put Josh Allen in this same situation that Trevor Lawrence has been, people would be saying the same things about Josh Allen right now that they're saying about Trevor. And I'm not talking about Joshua Hines Allen. I'm talking about the quarterback from the Buffalo Bills. You don't believe me? Look how Patrick Mahomes looked without big-time receivers last year and protection on his offensive line. Look at it. Look at how he looked in those big games when he played against good teams and was running for his life or throwing interceptions or couldn't get out of his own way. In Super Bowl games, when you don't have certain fundamental elements of football, there's no way that you're going to win. The question is about all of this is, did they mess him up? Is he going to be gun shy? Is he going to be thinking about that stuff? I don't believe he is. Because I think Coach Udinski and Liam Cohen have broken this thing down to the studs to the point where they have totally rebuilt him back up and said, hey, man, you don't have to do that much. This is what you have to do. You just have to be who you are, nothing more than that. And I believe Trevor's taken to it. You can hear it in his voice. Trevor gets mad anytime he makes a mistake. Anytime he does something that he should, he is humble and he says, nope, I got to fix this. Wasn't the greatest day. I've never heard him talk like that before. Every little thing matters. Like a missed throw the last couple of years would have been like, yeah, we'll hit it. No, they don't take anything for granted, and he's not taking anything for granted either. I'm telling you right now, there's a difference here. There's a big difference here. The difference is they have given him more. They haven't demanded less from him in terms of preparation. They have demanded less of him in terms of trying to do too much instead of doing the little things. Liam Cohen talks about pointing your feet towards your target. Doesn't mean your eyes have to be towards your target. You can use your eyes to manipulate coverage. Okay, how do you execute that? The way you execute that is, first of all, you got to believe you got time to throw, because you can't use your eyes to manipulate coverage. You got a 300-pound hyena running you down and is about to decapitate you and separate you from the football. Having confidence in his teammates, having confidence in the infrastructure of the team, having confidence in the system, the fact that they're going to be able to take things from the film room to the practice field, from the practice field to the game field, and they're going to work because they're like second nature. Welcome to the days of the Jacksonville Jaguars actually having competency on and off the field. And that's going to lead to Trevor Lawrence, I believe, having a lot of success this year. And I ain't going to hope I'm right. I know I'm right about that. I just hope other people will acknowledge it and understand that they've been a little bit unfair to Trevor Lawrence because, one, his stats aren't as bad as they make it sound, but two, he hasn't had the benefit of having the things that all of the other coaches or all of the other quarterbacks had provided to them by their respective coaches, especially the guys that they compare him to all the time. All right, man, you ain't got to compare yourself to nobody else if you're trying to make you some money. You can have your own opinions, and the way to sharpen those up is to make Locked On Bets your second listen. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers have daily Major League Baseball locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Preseason football has a full slate starting today for this entire weekend. It won't be football futures too much longer. It'll be football currents, and that will be something that you can get ahead on Locked On Bets. Make sure you check that out and tap in. All right, appreciate you today. We did it in 29 minutes. Thank you. It's 29 minutes. You can't get back, so I hope I gave you enough to not regret that. We'll see you the next time here on Locked On Jaguars.